Restoring order, the Trump administration is declaring New York, Portland, and Seattle as anarchist jurisdictions. It is the first step towards revoking federal funding from those cities after months of riots that destroyed thousands of businesses across the country. Here now is Andy McCarthy, Fox News contributor and former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate your insight on this because you have so much knowledge in this area. Tell me, do you think that this is an appropriate step? I know AG Barr said that these anarchists and, the local municipality and city and town and everybody's unwillingness to do something about this is infringing the rights on every person, including those who are out there hoping to peacefully protest. And that is what their beef is. What do you think about that? Is that a righteous charge?
Well, Melissa, I think it's a righteous charge in terms of the description of it. As far as the law is concerned, this is not a situation like where you designate a terrorist organization where it has a bunch of legal ramifications, just the mere designation. I don't think there is in the law something that's called a violent anarchy zone. They're kind of making this up on the fly. And I think what it's really about is more politics than the law. They know that if they try to stop any money that goes, federal money that goes to these cities, it'll be tied up in court forever, as happened with the sanctuary cities. So I think what's really happening here is President Trump is trying to run for president on the same model that Nixon used in '68 and Reagan did in 1980. He's the law and order guy, and he's trying to paint his opposition with a lot of justification, I think, as too sympathetic to criminals.
If he really wanted to do something about the violence, I mean, if you look at the statistics in New York City, the violence has skyrocketed, the 166% increase in gun violence, I believe it was the latest stat today, but they all sound just like that over the last 30 days compared to the same period a year ago. If he wants to get involved in that, and as he has said, he's offered support, in the form of bodies, anything that you might want. And the cities are saying, no, stay away, everything's fine the way it is. What is his recourse, if any? Or the Justice Department, what's their recourse, if any?
Well, I think, Melissa, they're not really just not saying, we don't want any help. What they are saying that we don't want federal troops to come into our cities or our states. But there are existing federal state task forces. Like, for example, in New York, there's a joint terrorism task force, an anti-gang crime task force, a drug task force, a firearms task force. And what they've been trying to do, especially with Operation Legend, is beef up the number of federal agents like FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals and the like, who are assigned to those task forces and make money available so that the cities and states can contribute more police and state troopers. I think that's a good idea. There's a limit to how much it will help unless the state and the municipalities have the will to enforce the law. If they don't, it's going to be very difficult for the feds to make a difference.
I mean, when you talk about those joint task force in New York, are they doing good work? Do they want more federal help? Are they shunning more federal help? Why aren't we seeing more of an impact? Is there one about crime on the streets? And, as we're saying, you look on the internet, you can see people posting pictures all the time of drug use out in the open in broad daylight, people performing sex acts on the Upper West Side in broad daylight. Right. These videos are everywhere. They send them to me and say, put them on, so are they working on that in concert together?
There's nothing, Melissa, that's more important than the tone that gets set by the municipal police. Just to give an example, there's 38,000 New York City cops when they're staffed up. There's 14,000 FBI agents in the whole country, and most of them are not working violent crime stuff. So it's either the municipal authorities are going to do the job or they're not. If they're not doing the job, if they're communicating to the police that they are not going to be backed up by their leadership if they do the kinds of things that are necessary to enforce the law, there's only a marginal amount of, it's probably not even a detectable amount of that can be done that where the feds can help. The real thing that has to happen is the police have to go back to enforcing the law, which in New York, the police enforce the law better than it's done any place else in the world, but you got to let them do their job.
Yeah. Andy McCarthy, thank you for explaining that to us. We appreciate it.